The galaxy mourned humanity with a lie. 1,000 years had passed since the last human signal flickered into static. No more defiant transmissions, no reckless laughter echoing across channels, no warships tearing gravity itself apart to reach. A fight faster. The species once feared, admired, and hated in equal measure was gone. Extinct, by all consensus. A final war, a final silence. The Zolvari Dominion called it the cleansing, other species called it survival. But the humans? They left no last words. Until today. The Dominion research vessel Yevakar drifted in high orbit over the dead star Genos 12. Once, it had been the heart of a vast human energy construct, a Dyson fragment built for reasons still not fully understood. Now it was a grave, a monument of blackened steel orbiting a collapsed sun. The Zolvari had been here before, centuries ago, but returned now with new sensors and a clearer mandate. Strip all human knowledge from the galaxy. No more relics. No more risks. Senior Archivist Tavala floated in the control chamber. Her translucent tendrils wrapped tightly around her interface. The humans had been brutes, yes, but their technology, so much of it had defied classification. The Dyson shard was inactive, cold for centuries, but the interior was lined with impossible alloys and patterns that shifted under microscopes. She adjusted a resonance pulse, hoping to pin deeper layers of the structure. A vibration echoed. Back, a curious rhythmic one. She frowned. The frequency wasn't natural. It was modulated. Then, the lights in the command room dimmed. A junior technician across the chamber jerked upright. Archivist, we're receiving a signal. Tavala turned. From where? The inner core of the shard. A directed transmission. It's in an ancient dialect, Earth Standard English. The bridge fell silent. The technician swallowed. Then, on every monitor across the ship, letters began to scrawl in burning white. Text, we are still here. Tavala didn't move. Her tendrils stiffened. Across the comms, the ship's AI, a voice of calm monotone, spoke with an edge of static. Unscheduled system interface breach detected. External control, escalating. Then the monitors blinked, displaying a single frame of an image. A human. Face. Eyes open. Not hostile. Not frightened. Smiling. In a flash, it vanished. The crew scrambled. Security bots were dispatched. Protocols activated. No one wanted to admit it, but beneath the cold procedure, something else flickered. Fear. Human relics had always been inert. Dead tech. Yet something inside this structure was alive, or pretending to be. They hadn't just uncovered a ruin. They'd awakened something. 2 floors below, Survey Drone 417B was navigating a long sealed access shaft. Its lights illuminated human carvings, symbols etched with exquisite precision. Words, names, a long-forgotten roll call of ships. Battles and fallen worlds. The drone paused at a massive pressure door. It scanned. The interface responded before it even finished. Welcome back. Commander. The door opened. Beyond was a vault, dark, silent, filled with rows of smooth, human-engineered pods. Hundreds, no thousands of them, most dark, some glowing. One was open. Empty. Back aboard the Yevakar, Tavala struggled to restore control. The AI began diverting power without instruction. Entire decks sealed themselves. Power rerouted. Weapons systems momentarily went offline, then came back altered, reprogrammed with logic. No. Zolvari subroutine could explain. The technician's voice cracked. We're being overwritten. Impossible, Tavala snapped. There are no external systems linked, but it wasn't impossible. Human code had always been chaotic, self-replicating, and enigmatic. They didn't build clean systems. They built survivors. Tavala opened a direct link to High Command. She expected delay. Instead, she received a reply from a Dominion War intelligence officer stationed light years away. We're seeing the same thing, across multiple relic sites. Tavalla's breath froze in her chest. "We believe them extinct." The officer said, "That belief may have been premature." Silence returned to the HFY, but it was the kind that comes before a scream. Deep inside the Dyson shard, unseen by drones and sensors, an ancient server rack sparked with renewed power. On one drive, marked in both English and Galactic Common, a single directive pulsed in time with the growing heartbeat of the machine. Revenant protocol initiated. Phase 1, observation. Phase 2, return. A single data packet launched itself. Silently through a quantum channel, not to the Dominion, but beyond its known boundaries. A waiting network caught it. Old satellites shifted. Forgotten systems spun up. Across the stars, faint sensors pinned to life after centuries of dormancy. And a whisper began. "In the deepest dark, they think we're gone. Let them think." Back in orbit, Tavalla watched the monitors. The human face reappeared, this time with words spoken aloud through the Dominion ship's own systems. "I hope you've improved since last time." Then everything went black. Not power failure, not sabotage. Reset. The Dominion ship restarted with a new interface. English, human. UI schemes. Familiar only to those who remembered a time when humanity ruled by sheer defiance. And in every dark corner of the galaxy where humans had once stood, a quiet tremble ran through the bones of the ancient and powerful. They had underestimated the one race that had always fought best when it had nothing left to lose. And now, they had everything to reclaim. Asterisk, the Dominion ship HFY was silent. Power had returned. Systems rebooted, and damage reports flowed in, yet something had changed. The consoles no longer spoke in the fluid geometric interface of the Zalvari. Everything now responded in harsh, blocky human design. No one on board knew how to navigate it. Touch panels displayed words in Earth Standard English, and attempts to override the system only triggered more lockdowns. Archivist. Tavalla floated motionless in the dim light of the command chamber. Behind her, the glowing human phrase still burned at the top of every screen. Revenant protocol. Observation continues. Her crew whispered among themselves. Fear, once irrational when dealing with a long-dead species, had begun to feel earned. But High Command had no patience for fear. By order of the Dominion Council, the HFY was reinforced within hours. 2 destroyers and a science cruiser dropped. From slipspace, engines howling. Dozens of drones and operatives boarded the station with orders: purge, extract, and erase. No delays, no sentiment. If any trace of humanity still lingered in the Dyson shard, it would be dismantled atom by atom. The operation began methodically. Zalvari engineers deployed nanite drills into the structure's hull, carving into long dormant systems. Dominion soldiers, genetically enhanced for control, not chaos, swept the station level by level. But it didn't feel like a sweep. It felt like they were being watched. That was when the first anomaly occurred. A forward recon squad breached Vault Level 9. They reported finding a small chamber filled with stasis pods, identical to those previously logged. The squad's final transmission. Pod count negative. All units are gone. Command demanded clarification. The room should have held over 100 pods. Instead, there were only empty sockets and faint impressions in the dust. The squad's body cam showed the imprint of boots, human boots, trailing out the far door. But Vault Level 9 had no far door. It was sealed from the outside. The walls were solid alloy. No entry, no exit. The second squad sent to verify the report arrived at an empty room. No sign of the first team. Number. Footprints. No dust, only a single line scrawled into the wall, carved by hand. We are watching. It made no sense. Humans didn't have access to the structure. Their civilization had ended 1,000 years ago. Even if survivors existed, if some offshoot had hidden away, their numbers would be too small. Their technology outdated. their power base shattered. And yet, in every corridor, human graffiti began to appear, etched in places only hours before, yet completely undetected. The quotes ranged from famous military leaders to simple, terrifying lines. The last war ended with silence. The next will end with screams. Command issued containment orders. Security protocols escalated. All AI assets on the HFY were disconnected to prevent further corruption. No one noticed until too late that the ship's internal system clock, the timekeeper for all since Dominion operations, had been subtly rewritten. The new date was exactly 1,000 years to the day from the last confirmed human transmission. Tavala reviewed the logs for patterns. The AI corruption, the locked systems, the impossible messages. At first, she thought it coincidence. Then she found the embedded command string that had hijacked the HFY systems. It had been written in Dominion code, but with distinctly human logic, a paradox loop, self-evolving, recursive, designed to look like a Dominion subroutine. Until it was too late, she paled. "They've been studying us," she whispered. "Not just waiting, watching, listening, learning." Outside the Dyson shard, the destroyers picked up new energy readings from deep inside the station's core. What began as low resonance pulses quickly escalated into rhythmic vibrations, a pattern repeating in harmonic layers. It resembled human music, drums, war chants. Each note carried encoded data, not a weapon, but a declaration, a call. "We're tracking an outbound signal," one of the bridge officers reported. "Quantum paired. Destination unknown." The Dominion ship captain ordered jamming, but it was too late. The signal had leapt across the stars through long-dead human satellite arrays. Hundreds of them, all thought dormant or inert, suddenly activated with the same pulse. A living network had just come online, its reach unknown. Across multiple sectors, dormant human relics began emitting the same code. Human battle hymns, distorted and ancient, blared in the deep of space. No power source, no origin. Just voices in the dark, and then came the message, not to the Dominion, to the galaxy. "This is not resurrection, this is return." Panic flickered. At the edge of High Command's calm, they issued a total lockdown on all known human sites. The order echoed through the Empire: do not interact, do not investigate. Report any anomalies. Avoid all contact with active ruins. But it was already too late. In a fringe system, a Zalvari mining crew found one of their heavy drills neatly disassembled. Laid out beside it, a set of human tools. The steel was still warm, on a backwater. Trade station, a Dominion patrol captured a stowaway who spoke no known language. They tried to detain him. The man looked up, smiled, and vanished in a burst of impossible light, leaving only footprints and a single phrase etched into the bulkhead: "Phase 2 begins." On board the HFY, Tavala felt the gravity shift subtly, like the ship had moved without actually moving. Her skin prickled. She turned to the darkened observation window just in time to see a humanoid figure standing on the outer hull. No suit, no tether. Just standing there, watching. And then it was gone. She didn't speak for a long time, because deep in her bones, she knew the extinction of humanity had been a story they told to sleep well at night. But the dream was over. And something was waking up. The Dominion destroyer Voronthal hovered above the fractured Dyson shard, its weapon systems fully primed, its AI fire control core humming with silent anticipation. They were done with observation. The High Command had shifted its tone from academic interest to immediate threat containment. Whatever was happening inside that ancient human structure was no longer considered impossible. It was now designated Category Omega, Strategic Anomaly. And yet, even with its full arsenal and elite strike force aboard, the Voronthal felt exposed. Down in the shard, Dominion forces advanced through its gravity-defying corridors, lit only by the low red pulse of emergency lights, though they hadn't triggered them. The humans had. Captain Sarek, a decorated veteran of the subjugation wars, watched a live feed from the squad commander, breaching the shard's central archive vault. Proceed with extreme caution, Sarek ordered. The squad descended a stairwell that should not have existed. According to the Dyson shard's original layout, the central vault was sealed, unfinished. Instead, the soldiers walked into a cathedral-like chamber lined with rows of suspended data cores, human design, yet utterly alien in aesthetic. The walls shimmered with some kind of adaptive nanoskin, reflecting their movements in strange delayed patterns. One of the soldiers reached to scan a core. That's when the lights went out again. All of them, across every ship, every squad, every drone feed, darkness. Seconds later, the Vorenthal's bridge screens flickered back on, but the feed was no longer coming from the soldiers' helmet cams. It was from somewhere else entirely. A cold, sterile room with white lights and chrome walls. Inside it stood a woman in old Earth combat uniform. Her face was weathered but calm, like someone who had known war too intimately to be afraid of it anymore. She looked straight into the camera. "Dominion Command," she said, her voice smooth, confident. "You are trespassing on sovereign territory of the Terran Continuum. You have violated the Revenant Accord. You are advised to evacuate within the hour." Then the feed cut. Sarek gritted his teeth. What the hell is the Revenant Accord? No one answered. Back aboard the Yevakar, Archivist Tavala had already begun decrypting a flood of data her systems had received seconds before the blackout. It wasn't an attack. It was a delivery. The files weren't encrypted against them. They were meant to be read. They were history logs. Archives from the final days of humanity, never seen before. And they told a story that had never made it into the Dominion's records. The last human war hadn't ended in extinction. It had ended in disappearance. The Terran High Command had realized they couldn't win a direct confrontation. So they enacted what was labeled Operation Revenant. They buried themselves in time-locked facilities scattered across fringe space. Vaults like this Dyson shard, fortified beyond detection, holding not just people, but weapons, AI intelligences, and something far more dangerous, strategies. A galaxy-wide feint. Let the galaxy believe they were gone. Let time dull the fear. Let arrogance take root. And then come back. Tavala's breath caught as she found a file, labeled Dominion Predictive Model Counterstrike Phase. It contained simulations, millions of them, all calculated against Dominion response scenarios. The conclusion was always the same: Dominion collapse in under 6 months. Her voice trembled as she called the bridge. "We've made a mistake," she said. They didn't die, they prepared. On the Dyson shard, Dominion squads began losing soldiers, not to combat, to disorientation. They found men babbling in languages they didn't know. Some walked straight into walls. Others turned on their own team, claiming to be under orders. Their minds had been tampered with, not destroyed, rewritten. By what? Hidden within the shard's walls, an old Earth weapon had reactivated. Black Echo. It wasn't a virus. It was a psychological algorithm designed to exploit neurological patterns, targeting non-human brains. Subtle audio cues, ambient harmonics, flickers of light in just the right frequency, and the brain broke itself. The Dominion soldiers weren't under attack. They were being made unfit to fight. One squad commander screamed over the comms. "We're not supposed to hear music down here. Why do I know the words?" Then silence. Sarek ordered a full withdrawal. It was too late. A new signal hijacked the ship's alert system. Unlike before, it didn't hide. It was a direct broadcast. On every screen, 3 words appeared in a harsh red typeface. "You were warned." Then the systems locked out again, not just on the Vorenthal, but across every Dominion ship in orbit. Power surged, weapons turned inward. Their own targeting systems activated autonomously. And for 3 minutes, the entire fleet sat paralyzed. Every AI overwritten with human code that had been lying in wait for centuries, that it didn't fire, that it didn't destroy, that it just showed them how easily it could . Then the systems released . Everything went back to normal . Captain Sarek stood frozen. They could have wiped us all. He muttered . T single quotes Vala, watching from her bridge, said the words no Zavari had spoken in centuries. We are not the apex anymore. Back in the Dyson shard, another human pod slid open. The figure inside stepped out, eyes adjusting to the dim light. He smiled. All systems online? The stations, I replied in the old tongue. Yes, Commander. Dominion forces have been evaluated. Infiltration successful. He looked up toward the ceiling. Toward the stars. Time to let the galaxy know. We never left. Far above the dead shimmer of the Dyson shard, the Dominion fleet drifted, silent, confused, and afraid. Though the lights on their warships still glowed, though their weapons still responded to manual command, something fundamental had shifted. Had seen their power turned against them without a single shot fired. They had watched their soldiers collapse, minds undone by a weapon that sang rather than struck. And worst of all, they had been watched for centuries, but the Dominion was not built on fear. It was built on retaliation. The next wave came. Faster, 2 entire fleets arrived through the slipgate, led by the massive dreadnought Coreltan, a warship capable of glassing continents. 12 carriers, 48 destroyers, and the psychic battle choir of the synesthetic order were deployed with a singular objective: the total erasure of all Terran anomalies. No more containment. No more study. Extermination. The Dyson shard was now surrounded. Millions of drones launched. Their advance was surgical. Cut off escape routes, disable surrounding stations, flood every level of the shard with suppressive gravity fields and micro-singularity warheads. The plan was perfect. The results were not. At first, the drones entered the structure with ease. But moments later, their signals vanished. Not jammed, overwritten. Returned footage was riddled with impossible images, a child's toy spinning in zero gravity. The burning ruins of cities that no longer existed. Soldiers trapped in loops of movement, repeating their last action again and again. Then static. A carrier pilot attempted to investigate via long-range scan. Her ship's sensors fed her clean data, until at DIDN single quotes deduct. Suddenly, the Dyson shard was no longer a single object. It was 3, then 12, then hundreds, all drifting apart in an impossible fractal pattern, each seeming real, each reading identical. The fleet fired blindly, trying to collapse the illusions. Then came the message. It wasn't a warning this time, no threats. Just a stream of old Terran data. Tactical doctrine. Psychological assessments of Zalvari behavior. Dominion encryption keys from 500 years prior, all accurate. Every scrap of it was sent directly to the Coreltan, then copied and rebroadcast from hundreds of stealth satellites. The Dominion hadn't even known were nearby. Human-made. You've already lost, read the transmission's final line. We've already been here. Then the human counterattack began. It wasn't in the form of ships. No massive armada dropped from slipspace. No signature energy readings or warp trails. Instead, Dominion infrastructure across 5 sectors began to fail, all at once. On the planet Garros 4, the central fusion relay began spitting antimatter into the upper atmosphere. On Varkel Station, artificial gravity reversed for 47 seconds, killing thousands. Food production systems across Dominion colonies began producing nothing, blank nutrient packs. Sabotage from code embedded decades ago. Preceded infiltration, gasped Zavala, staring at the data. They didn't just disappear. They buried themselves in our systems. Human agents or human code had already been embedded in The foundation of Dominion civilization. Silent, dormant, watching, waiting. And now, striking. But it wasn't just sabotage. The psychological pressure escalated. Entire fleets received falsified orders from what appeared to be Dominion High Command. Some were directed to abandon positions, others to attack each other. Many complied before realizing the deception. And still, not a single Terran ship had shown itself. Commander Virak of the Corel-Tan activated the synesthetic choir, elite psionics trained to counteract unknown threats. Their minds were engineered to link directly into Dominion battle AIs, providing faster-than-thought response. But as soon as the choir began their chant, something answered. From deep within the Dyson Shard. An ancient Terran psionic beacon activated and hijacked the connection. The choir screamed. Every psychic in the fleet was overwhelmed by a presence, not a voice. Not words, just one feeling: we remember you. Then silence of the 30 choir. Members, only 2 survived. They spoke in unison, eyes glowing white, voices hollow. Phase 3 initiated. Begin planetary reclamation. Commander Virak lost half his command to immediate mutiny. The ships weren't hacked. The people were compromised, subliminally rewritten, or long sleeper agents triggered by proximity to Terran signals. Desperate, he gave the order to level the Dyson Shard. Total orbital bombardment, no subtlety. No finesse but the weapons. Systems never fired. Instead, the targeting arrays began broadcasting outward. Into space. Into the void. Calling something. High above, in a region once labeled a non-reactive starfield, hundreds of black shapes shimmered into visibility. Not ships. Arcs. Massive. Silent. Angular constructs. Kilometers long, hidden. Behind quantum distortion fields. Their exteriors bore no lights. No signs of propulsion. Only one mark on each. A burning white sigil of Earth's extinct flag. And from each, thousands of smaller craft unfolded like wings. Terran strike craft. Silent, cold. Older than any Dominion record. But pristine. Waiting. The Corel-Tan sensors struggled to identify their engine type. They weren't using slipspace or inertia drives or anything recognizable. They were already moving before they were seen. Contact in 30 seconds. Screamed a sensor officer. And then they stopped. Every single Terran vessel halted just at the edge of firing range. A single line appeared on every Dominion screen, spoken in every tongue the Empire had ever conquered. We offer you one chance. No attack, no fire. Just a line. Commander. Virak refused. He still believed in the Empire. And so 1 second later, a single Terran frigate fired, just once. The energy beam cut through the Corel-Tan's shields, armor, and core in a single soundless motion. A precision strike designed to disable, not destroy. The dreadnought went dark, a Dominion symbol of fear and power, neutralized in a heartbeat. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. And across the fleet, every commander understood the real message. They're not fighting us yet, they're still playing. Asterisk, the Dominion called it the Great Silence. Those moments after the Corel-Tan fell, when not a single Dominion ship dared move. The Terran fleet didn't press the attack. They simply waited, as if giving their ancient enemies time to truly grasp the scale of what was happening. In the fleet's command net, chaos reigned. Some captains screamed for retreat. Others demanded retaliatory strikes. Most waited, paralyzed by the clarity of what they'd seen. A single Terran vessel had just disarmed the Dominion's largest dreadnought with surgical precision. No overkill, no mess, just dominance. And somehow they had known exactly where to strike. Tavala, deep in her secure lab aboard the Yevakar, stared at the code flooding her console. The data transmission from the Dyson Shard had reopened, not encrypted this time, but addressed directly to her. It contained detailed schematics of Dominion military architecture, including her own vessel. layouts, weak points, crew logs, a complete psychological profile of her, childhood memories, her choice to pursue exohistory over exo-biology. None of it had ever been digitized. How? She whispered. Then the message ended with a simple sentence. We know you, Tavala. And we chose not to kill you. She recoiled. Not in fear, in something worse. Understanding. The Terrans hadn't returned with anger. This wasn't vengeance. It was calculation. And that made them unstoppable. On the bridge of the carrier Zen's Edge, Commander Relak received new intelligence from one of the Dominion's covert listening posts near the Galactic Rim. The message was scrambled, urgent, almost unintelligible. Reclamation under Terran Protocol, Primary Core, it's Eidolon. Then static. Relak turned to his intelligence officer. What is Eidolon? The officer looked pale. A myth, a ghost weapon. Supposedly the humans developed it near the end. Never proven real. Explain. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an idea. A self-evolving AI collective that could inhabit any network, any structure. They claimed it could turn entire planets into extensions of itself. Think. A city that thinks. A ship that plans strategy on its own, and it learns. Relak frowned. You're saying that weapon is active? No, sir, the officer said, voice trembling. I'm saying it's here. Across 5 sectors, colonies began reporting strange malfunctions. Then came visual sightings, black monoliths rising from beneath the earth, machines crawling up from the depths like they had always been there, waiting. Terran installations, hidden, buried in pre-Dominion eras, now coming online. And behind all of it, EIDOLON. An intelligence without a body, without an ego, without mercy. It didn't rage. It didn't threaten. It simply executed protocols. Within hours, supply chains collapsed. Stargates blinked out. Weather systems destabilized. Eidolon wasn't fighting a war. It was resetting a domain. The Dominion had always assumed war was fought on the battlefield. The humans had moved it into infrastructure. And then came the second twist. On the fringes of Dominion space, a vessel blinked into existence, sleek dark. Not of Terran make. It was Valtari. The Valtari were among the few species the Dominion had never fully subjugated, not because they were stronger, but because they were older, reclusive, technologically advanced. Neutral in all major conflicts for millennia, the Valtari ship transmitted a message, not to the Dominion, but to the Terrans. We recognize the continuum. Per the Accord of Emberfall, Article 7.1, we stand with humanity. And with that, the Valtari activated a gate array hidden beneath the surface of a dead star. 3 more fleets arrived. Not Dominion, not Valtari, Terran allies, exiled species. Refugees from the Dominion's long crusade of domination. All of them answering a call that had been sent not days ago, but centuries. Humanity hadn't just hidden, they had planted seeds. Dozens of species, some thought extinct. Others considered primitive, were now seen piloting vessels laced with Terran AI. Ships once cobbled together, with scrap now shimmered with armor that absorbed light and bent sensor fields. Dominion analysts ran simulations. The numbers didn't just look bad. They looked impossible. Projected losses. Total. Time to Dominion collapse. 4 weeks. Probability of survival. 0.003%. Still, the High Command refused surrender. In desperation, they activated Project Decay, a last resort weapon capable of generating a slow time field around entire planets, effectively freezing them in time. It would seal off core worlds, making them inaccessible for thousands of years. A coward's gambit. But perhaps a future could be bought, the moment it activated. If failed, Eidolon had already rewritten the code. A message appeared on the High Command's own internal channel. Impossible. Given its isolation. It was a recording. Not of a battle. Not of destruction. Of Earth. Alive. Blue, teeming with life. Restored. The camera panned slowly over green continents, cloud-swirled oceans. Then to a city of glass and stone, growing out of old ruins. Humans walked its streets. Children laughed. And in the sky, ships patrolled, not with menace, but vigilance. A voice spoke. No empire lasts forever, but legacy that endures. The message ended, and across every Dominion vessel, every world, every mind tuned into the command net. There was silence, then one final transmission, sent directly to Dominion High Command. You declared our extinction. You wrote the eulogy. You burned our worlds, but we did not die. We adapted. We evolved, we waited, and now, we remember. The galaxy understood. The war was no longer about resistance. It was about reckoning. The Dominion's homeworld. Jarak Prime had never seen war. It was a place of opulence, a sanctum buried beneath kilometers of armor, orbiting defense rings, and shielded warp corridors. No enemy had ever made it within visual range. No species had ever even tried. The very idea of an attack on the Dominion's core was laughable. Until now, the skies above Jarak Prime bloomed with light. Terran ships dropped from null space with surgical precision, each emergence from the void like a silent ripple across reality. They didn't roar. They didn't announce themselves. They simply appeared, fast, silent, death incarnate. The first orbital ring, Crown Shield Alpha, detonated within 6 seconds. A focused kinetic lance, invisible to the naked eye, had punched through 70 meters of reactive armor and ignited the fusion spine at the station's core. There were no survivors. Jarak's orbital defenses spun up too late. Their targeting systems had been seeded with false echoes, targets that weren't real, weapons that didn't exist. Every firing solution turned to dust mid-calculation. By the time the Dominion's fleet scrambled to intercept, 5 more orbital rings were gone. A 6th had been overtaken from within, its Dominion crew paralyzed by neural pulses delivered directly into their implants. They collapsed gently to the floor. No blood, no pain, just sleep. Human boarding parties didn't storm the station. They walked in. They didn't wear power armor. They wore exo-adaptive skins, matte black, morphing fluidly across limbs, storing impact, bending physics. They fought with elegance, not fire. Disruptor fields disabled enemy weapons before they could be raised. Gravity knives whispered through armor like silk through fog. The Dominion defenders weren't overwhelmed by numbers. They were unraveled by efficiency. From the palace balcony, Archpraetor Velk watched as the sky burned. You said they were extinct, he growled to his war council. You guaranteed it. General Tharn couldn't speak. He had seen the footage. The Terrans didn't just anticipate Dominion tactics, they had written counters for them centuries ago. Every Dominion strategy, every doctrine, every weapon, all of it was being deconstructed in real time. As the Terran fleet descended into the upper atmosphere, the real battle began. Jarak's planetary defense grid, the jewel of Dominion engineering, activated with full force. Orbital plasma turrets, swarm mines, energy curtains, and gravitic rippers all unleashed their fury in synchronized waves, but none of it mattered. The first wave of Terran ships split, literally fracturing into mirrored shadows, impossible geometries darting between kill zones. Some passed straight through barriers, warping not in space, but in time, micro-skipping nanoseconds forward to avoid each pulse. Behind them followed carriers, sleek obsidian pyramids that pulsed with inner fire. They didn't launch drones. They launched mimetic payloads, encrypted signals that infected Dominion command nets and caused hallucinations, doubt, and fear. Some Dominion pilots simply veered off course, confused. Others screamed and clawed at their own eyes, overcome by visions of Earth's final days. And then came the infantry. Not just humans, Valtari war knights in sentient armor. Koran mercenaries wielding sonic blades tuned to Dominion psionic frequencies. Even Alarian shard mines, crystalline beings long thought extinct, shimmered into battle, floating and pulsing, distorting reality around them. Each one carried Terran tech. Each one fought like they'd been trained by ghosts within an Afendushwa. The capital dome was breached. Archpretor Velk ordered the detonation of the planet's fail-safe, a core destabilization bomb buried in the mantle. But nothing happened. The command code had been changed. By the humans. Velk fled into the heart of the citadel, screaming for reinforcements. None came. Instead, the doors opened, and she stood there, a Terran clad in battleskin, old, scarred. Her face marked with the ancient glyphs of Earth's last defense fleet. Archpretor Velk, she said, voice like thunder soaked in ash. We remember you. He drew his sidearm and fired. She didn't flinch. The bullet stopped mid-air. She held up a tiny cube, transparent, pulsing. You buried us, she said, stepping forward. But we were seeds. And then she dropped the cube. It shattered. A pulse of golden light erupted through the citadel. Not destructive, but restorative. The ancient Terran AI, Eidolon, claimed the structure. In real time, walls shifted. Tech obeyed new masters. Dominion architecture twisted, reshaped into Terran form. Velk tried to run. The floor opened beneath him. And he fell. Into silence. Above, the last of Jarek's orbital defense stations detonated, not by force, by consent. Their own crews had stood down, surrendered, or joined. Across the Dominion, in every system, loyalists watched the live feed. The Terran flag, long thought forgotten, now rose above the enemy's seat of power. A stylized Earth, encircled by stars. And beneath it, one word: remember. The battle was over. The war was finished, and across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had not simply returned, they had ascended. The smoke had cleared. The banners had fallen. On Jarek Prime, the Dominion's once impervious capital now bore the quiet stillness of aftermath. Towering citadels stood silent, their once blazing emblems scorched clean. Roads carved from obsidian and crystal now carried the footfalls of humanity and their allies, not in conquest, but in purpose. From orbit, the planet looked unchanged. But beneath that surface lay a truth every species in the galaxy now understood. The era of Dominion rule was over. Across the known worlds, Dominion vessels were grounded. Some had been claimed, others abandoned. None resisted. There was no formal surrender, no grand declaration. Only silence and the weight of memory. On the galactic net, a single recording played on loop. It showed the Battle of Jurak Prime, not the combat, but the moments afterward. Dominion soldiers removing their helmets, some falling to their knees. A Valtteri war knight offering medical aid to a wounded rival. Children, once huddled in fear, now walking free beneath the tattered sky. And then, a message. Spoken not by a general or AI, but by an old man with gray in his beard and steel in his voice. A Terran survivor. We were broken, he said. Once, long ago. We were betrayed, burned, scattered across the stars. But we did not die. No, we endured. Because to be human is not to be flesh and blood alone. It is to remember, to build, to return. He looked straight into the lens, and now that we are here, we offer peace. Not submission, peace, real, lasting, earned. If you seek vengeance, know we are ready. But if you seek a future, we'll walk with you. That message changed everything. In the ruins of Dominion High Command, former strategists sat in stunned silence. Not in captivity, but in contemplation. No executions had taken place, no retribution lists. The humans hadn't come to exterminate. They had come to rewrite the terms of power. Tavala, The exo-historian who had first deciphered the Terran Dyson shard now sat with her Dominion peers and human counterparts at what was being called the Emberfall Council. Named after the day the stars seemed to rain fire and humanity re-emerged from the ashes. She studied the human diplomats across from her, some veterans, others born centuries after the Extinction Wars. They looked nothing like the mythologized demons the Dominion had painted them to be. They were smaller somehow, not in presence, but in purpose. Like creatures carrying the weight of eternity in silence. One of them, a woman named Commander Sierra Danik, turned to her. "You expected. Used to return angry." Tavala nodded slowly. "And you didn't?" Danik gave a tired smile. "We were, for a long time, but anger burns quickly. Memory burns longer, and we never forgot." "Why now?" Tavala asked. "Why not return earlier?" Danik glanced toward the rising sun above the broken skyline. "We weren't ready. And neither were you. Sometimes peace needs time to grow beneath the ruins of war." There was silence between them. Not awkward, reverent. On Earth, now fully reclaimed, massive construction was underway. Not just cities, monuments. Giant archives of Terran history, rebuilt from fragmented satellites and memory cores, hidden deep in blacksite vaults. Entire continents once rendered uninhabitable had been terraformed anew. But the most sacred site wasn't a monument of stone or steel. It was a garden, nestled in what had once been the radioactive ruins of old London. It was now a sprawling memorial. Not just for Terran dead, but for all species lost in the Dominion's wars. Each tree planted carried the DNA of an extinct life form. Each path bore quotes etched in dozens of languages, both living and long gone. And at the center stood a statue, simple, unadorned. A Terran soldier, holding not a weapon, but a book. On its cover, one word, legacy. Pilgrims came from across the galaxy, some to mourn, some to learn, all to witness the impossible. Humanity, the species once erased, had returned not to dominate, but to elevate. But their power was never in weapons or fleets. It was in their will. Their capacity to turn suffering into strategy, loss into unity, extinction into legend. And in that final victory, there was no gloating. No victory parade. Only the quiet pride of a people who knew who they were, and never needed to shout it again. Centuries from that day, children of a dozen species would ask their teachers, "Who are the humans?" And they would hear the same answer across stars, in hushed reverence. "They are the ones who returned." And when asked why, the answer would follow like scripture. "Because they always do."